Hello, welcome to Jeremy's game design coaching session. Today it's a little bit unique because we have a tabletop game actually, a tabletop game. So we're kind of like trying to playtest the game through tabletop simulators. I have Benjamin here. Ben, maybe you can just tell me a little bit about yourself, and then maybe just tell me a little bit about your game also, and then we'll just play through one session, just like a quick session,
hmm
just to get a feel of how your game is being played, and then we'll go into the coaching next, lah.
Yep,
Right?
yep. Okay, so I'll introduce myself first.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ben. I'm actually a game designer. I've been working as a game designer for about 3 years now.
Mm.
And yeah, so this game is for now called Mech Mining. It's
Mm.
a game I've been working on and off for about a year. And this, I believe, is the sixth iteration of it. The game itself is it's a co-op deck building game where you and your friends you pilot mechs and then you fight off hordes of aliens in order to survive for long enough to power up your teleport beacon
Mm.
and escape from an alien planet that you're stranded on.
Do you have any particular inspirations for this game?
Particular inspirations, I would say it's a large list of
Mm-hmm.
inspirations, but like it's like all sort of like diluted and filtered through my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the biggest inspirations is Dominion for like its resource and deck building systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of like what else because like it's really just like I'm a huge deck building game fan,
Yeah, yeah.
and this game really is just like sort of all of that lived experience and me trying to figure out like what I like and putting it into a game.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right, all right. I think you also mentioned that you are also trying to like capture the essence of like Helldivers, right? Of like aliens
Mm,
attacking and
yes, yes.
powering up like a beacon to escape. Because I see there's also a mechanic in your game that has does that element as well.
Yeah. So like I really wanted to capture that like you and your friends against like this horde of insurmountable aliens and
Mm.
like you're just mowing them down as like you're frantically trying to like power up like an objective like a beacon.
Cool, cool. All right.
And
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. I think without further ado, let's just try to play through a session of your game. Yeah.
Okay, so before we begin,
Yep.
so everybody needs to have their own mech.
Yep.
So over here we actually have like starter mechs.
Mm-hmm.
These are also starter mechs as well. They
Yep.
just have like a deck sort of set up. But each mech comes with a couple of parts.
Mm-hmm.
You have a armor rating, which is like the shield icon.
Yep.
You have a speed stat, which is this like 4 and like this like speedometer icon. You have a heat stat, which is sort of your action resource
Mm-hmm.
that you build up every turn, and you have a maximum stress stat, which is like this 4 and heart icon here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take damage, you lose this.
Mm-hmm.
And then each mech comes with its own starting weapon. So for example, Iceman over here
Mm-hmm.
uh, comes with a hand cannon as
Mm-hmm.
his starting weapon. Oh, I realize it's not loading in for you, the cards. I'm thinking if like it'll work if I share my screen in the meantime and like I
Uh
could walk you through the
oh, okay, yeah,
game
that
board
that that
and all
works also.
that.
Yeah, that works also.
Where was I? Yeah, I was explaining the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So each each mech comes with its own starter weapon.
Yep.
And for example, here Iceman comes with like a hand cannon.
Yep.
Uh, and I'm not sure if you've gone through like the anatomy of a card on like the rules, but
Mm.
for clarity's sake, I'll just like really fast like explain it. So there's a weapon. A weapon has a range, which is indicated by this like box over here
Mm-hmm.
with like a target and far. Each weapon also has a crystal cost, which is on the right side here. So like when you buy weapons later on, you'll be looking at this cost.
All right.
A name, a heat cost, which is how much heat you generate to activate this weapon.
Mm-hmm.
An ammo cost, which is how much ammo you have to discard from your hand to activate the weapon, and a damage stat,
Mm.
which is how many damage dice you roll
Mm.
when you activate this weapon.
Your damage dice is
So,
D6, right?
yep,
Okay.
D6,
All right.
yes. Yeah, so like this entire game is just purely D6.
Mm.
And then like each mech also does have like their own unique passive ability. So for example, like Iceman has like this one where it's like at the start of your turn, you have 3 or less tools and weapons combined to draw 2 more cards.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else has like some, well, I try to make it as interesting as I can.
Okay. No worry. Yep.
Mechanic. The way the game works is everybody sets up their deck, which is basically a mix of action cards,
Mm-hmm.
So you get like 2 action cards in your deck, some crystals.
Yep.
These are your main currency to buy cards from the shop, which is over here.
Yep.
So at the start of the game, only this tier, which is the tier 1 cards of the shop, are face up. And then you unlock the rest of the shop by powering up and progressing in the beacon. There is a mine where there's crystals and they have toughness. There's aliens over here. There's 3 alien decks. And then we have like an ammo supply pile over here, which is also kind of like the shop, but like this goes to your discard pile instead of straight to your hand when you buy stuff from here.
Like Dominion, right? When you buy something, it goes into your discard, and then you
Yeah,
can use it when you draw it in the next
Yes.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit like that, but like the exception to that is the shop, where it goes straight into your hand or immediately gets equipped.
Yep.
Apart from the crystals, you also get like some starting ammo that corresponds with your starting weapon.
Yep.
And that is your deck.
Okay. Cool.
So I'll just use these two set up mechs to demonstrate
Yep.
a turn loop. So at the start of your turn, you first off, let me real fast like pull up my rule book as well, just to make sure I'm not like messing up my turn structure. Okay, so at the start of your turn, say for example you're playing Hunter, right? He's got 5 speed. You draw 5 cards.
Yep.
So you draw 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you have 5 cards in your hand. And then after each player draws their starting hand. So for example, this guy, he's got 5 cards as well. After everybody has drawn their starting hand, we draw aliens. So this is the alien deck. And you might notice that there's 3 of them. The alien deck actually swaps out for a higher difficulty every time you progress the beacon to the next stage. So at the start of everybody's turn, basically you flip open 1 alien. It's called spawning an alien. So you flip open 1 alien per player and put it into far range. And then once that is done, you actually sort of start the turn. So the way a turn works in this game is everybody takes their turn simultaneously. You get to communicate like, oh, what cards do I have in my hand? What actions do I want to take on my turn? Maybe like I want to buy a thing first, and then after I have this thing, it'll help somebody else attack. Things like that. So things you can do during your turn, which is called the action phase. The phase just now is called the draw phase. In the action phase, you're able to, first off, the most important mechanic of the game is buy. So the way buying works is you look at the shop over here. There's cards, and then they have crystal costs on the side. The way you buy is you can discard crystal cards. So for example, this tiny crystal has a crystal value of 1, as represented on the top left corner here. So I discard 1 crystal, and then I can choose any one of these cards that has 1, and I can buy it for either myself or an ally. So for example, I want to buy this action called Reload, which lets me draw up to 2 ammo from my discard pile. So I'll buy that, and that goes straight into my hand. And then we can keep going until everybody is out of actions. The next action you can do, Cyclops is able to do it over here. He's got a pistol that has far range. In order to attack, what you want to do is you discard the corresponding ammo. So for example, pistol needs 1 ballistic ammo. So you discard 1 bullet. That gives you 1 ballistic ammo. And then you take 2 heats. So you put 2 on your heat tracker over here. And then you're able to roll 1 damage dice to attack any one of the aliens in far range. So right now we've got a Spewer, which is an alien that attacks twice, and the Botchling, which is like a 1 toughness alien. So alien anatomy, real fast. They're aliens. They have the names. They have effects. And the most important stat on the alien is the shield icon here, which is their toughness. When you attack an alien, you roll dice. So for example, I use my pistol, I trigger it, I take my heat, I discard my bullets, and then I roll to see if I hit the Botchling. So you have to roll higher than this number. So if you roll equal, it misses. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. 1 player also starts as the bait. So I will actually just put this over here on Cyclops. So another thing you can also do is you can also buy ammo from the ammo supply. So the way the ammo supply here works is you actually can take like free single value ammo and add it to your discard pile, or you can pay 5 crystals to get heavy ammo, which gives you 3 of that ammo's resource in 1 card. For example, Hunter, he wants to use Impact, right? This player might want to do is actually like he'll just buy 2 impacts, put it into his discard pile,
Mm.
And then because Hunter just bought a card called Reload, which
Yep.
lets him draw up to 2 ammo from his discard pile, he can play that. So he'll take 2 heats, he'll discard Reload, and then he'll basically draw these 2 drives. And then once he has these 2 drives, he can now like activate his weapon, which is a hardened knife, which does 2 damage to close range aliens. So this is actually very convenient because this brings me to the next action you can do in your action phase, which is you can discard, you can activate your weapon. So I'll take the heat cost as well and discard 1 impact ammo. Oh wait, it trashes the ammo used by this weapon. So trash actually means remove from play. So you actually just throw it away out of the game. So trash can be a very powerful deck building mechanic for you as the player as well, because it lets you thin your deck.
Yep.
I cast Hardened Knife, and I get 2 damage dice I can roll. And right now, there's no aliens in close range, because they all just spawned and are in far range. So you can actually also attack crystals.
Yep.
Crystals also have toughness. And the way this works is you basically just choose the crystal you want to attack. Say I want to attack normal crystal. I roll my damage dice. Because Hardened Knife gives me 2 damage, I get to roll 2 dice. 4 is bigger than 3, so I get that normal crystal and it goes into my hand. And then we flip open another card to replace that slot in the mine. So that's sort of the economy part of the game. So, okay, the way powering the beacon works is you, instead of discarding, you trash
Trash it,
the
yes,
crystals.
yes.
Yeah, so for example, right, I have like this normal crystal that I
Yep.
just mined.
Yep.
I can trash this. So I'll just put this here.
Yep.
That's 2 crystals, and then we power it 1, 2.
Yep.
Like that. I think like the only action that I haven't sort of covered is activating tools. So we have a tool over here called Scouting Drone. Tools are basically just weapons that can't attack. You pay the heat cost, you pay the energy cost, and then you do the tool's effect. So for example, Scouting Drone, if I were to activate this, I would reveal the next alien card, I may discard it or return it to the top of the deck and then draw 2 cards. So like it's mostly utility. Some of them give you like ways to cycle your cards around in your deck. Some of them give you ways to help your allies, like draw more cards, reduce heats, heal even, things like that. Once all of the players are satisfied with the turns, they can declare, I end my turn, and then they discard their entire hand. Everybody discards their entire hand, and then the aliens attack. So we move on to the next phase. So on the aliens attack phase, the aliens in close range will attack the bait player. So in this case, for the sake of demonstration, I'll just pretend that like there's like a couple of aliens here already. Say at the end of the turn, Cyclops is the bait, and there's 2 aliens in close range. What happens is for every alien, a dice is rolled, and then that dice is compared to Cyclops's armor rating. So for example, like we have the Burrower, we have the Spear, and because the Spear has a special condition that says this alien attacks twice, we'll add another dice to the pool. So we roll these 3 dice to see how much damage the aliens deal, and we check. So 4 is larger than 1, 5 is larger than 1, 5 is larger than 1. So that's a total of 3 dice that are larger than your armor, which means you take 3 stress. Once that's done, once the close range aliens have attacked, the far range aliens move to close range. And then after that, all the players reduce their heats down to 0. So you clear your heats. So this is the part, let me tell you what happens if you have heat over your heat limit. So the way heat works is you can actually just keep racking and collecting heat until like you hit like whatever limit you can, as long as you can pay the cost. So for example, like Cyclops, he ends the turn with like 7 or 8 heat. So at this point, when he's clearing his heat, you have to calculate, okay, so 5 is my limit, I can get rid of that safely, but there's 3 over the limit. So for every heat over the limit, he will have to roll 1 damage dice, compare it against his armor, and then take stress based on how many is higher than his armor. So in this example, like he rolls, and it's all higher, which means he takes 3 more stress, and he dies. When any one of the player dies, the game ends.
Okay. So I think it's like 90% how I imagine the turns play out. So thanks for the demonstration. Is there anything else you want to cover so far?
So one mechanic that I didn't really cover just now, because this is like sort of the added complexity. At the start of the game, if you've played the game like once or twice and you're like, oh, I want more of a challenge, you can actually choose a boss to add to the session. And the boss sort of acts as this like persistent modifier to the way the game works. The only boss I have designed right now is called the Infestation.
Mhm.
And the way each boss ideally would work is they all have their own gimmick and they all do something to make your life more difficult. For example, like let's use this boss. The Infestation has this track on the top over here. Every time an alien is spawned, this track moves up by 1. So and then once it's at 4
Mhm.
and an alien is spawned.
Mhm.
So for example, we spawn an alien. There's also an additional alien type called Elite. These
Yep.
are the rarer, stronger aliens, but they're functionally still alien. If we attach an infestation card, which is this boss's special deck, to the alien.
Mhm.
So we just do something like this. And then this boss's mechanic is basically after you attach the infestation card, it goes back to 0. And then when an infested alien dies, for example, like the players manage to kill this jammer,
Yep.
you flip this card open and then it does
Ah.
something. So
Oh,
like you
okay,
get
okay.
like effects like a bursting pus. It's like the player who killed this alien. They have to
Mhm.
discard 2 cards or take 3 heats.
Mhm.
So it's like a lose-lose, pick your poison type event. Sludge weapon, which is like you attach this to a player's weapon. That weapon costs more heat now.
Mhm.
Or even like additional status cards that jam your deck and act as
Mm.
dead draws in
Mm.
your hand.
Okay, I think that covers everything. Okay, I guess I have two main questions. Like, have you tried playtesting your games with like your peers or anyone like that? And
Hmm.
what is the general feedback you got? And also, is there any particular thing that you feel like you want to improve, based on today's session?
Playtesting, I have playtested this quite a bit
Yep.
with my peers. And in terms of feedback,
Mm-hmm.
it's mainly because like the iteration you've seen here
Mm-hmm.
is this version has not been playtested. There was like a previous version
Right.
with like different values and all that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the feedback was mainly about pacing, whether or not it takes too long to get to like the mid game, or whether or not like aliens are like too overwhelming. But a lot of it seems to be about balance and like I think like one thing that people do like is like figuring out synergies.
Okay. How about yourself? Like, what do you feel like is there any particular thing you feel like you're kind of stuck with, or maybe is there any particular part you feel can improve but just don't really know how? Like basically, like what do you feel like you want to work on next, in your next iteration, or maybe like even this iteration?
So I think like for me, one of the biggest things that I'm not very happy with is actually the ammo supply system. Like the question you asked just now, right?
Yep.
Why is the ammo supply the only part of the shop that goes into your discard pile instead of
Mm.
into your hand? And yeah, I kind of agree because like it's a bit confusing that it's not consistent with all the
Mm.
other rules in the
Mhm.
game. But at the same time, I haven't yet figured out a solution to, well, solving this issue just yet.
I'm good with your demo so far. I kind of see everything I need to see already. I think if there's nothing else you want to show me here, we can move on to the notes part, because I feel like it's quite close to what I imagined, and now that you demo it, a lot of things make sense now. I can go to the notes next slide if you prefer that. One thing I like about your game so far is that the mechanics and the representation of that mech defending like the aliens, attacking the beacon. You can buy weapons, you can equip weapons. I feel that that's kind of interesting. But I think you mentioned, right, in terms of pacing, I want to bring attention to Dominion, because Dominion is the game that you referenced. I think your game, right, on the base level, there's a lot of things you need to do. Like your turn structure, right, is quite long. Your turn structure also requires people working together at the same time. So that means,
Mm,
right, at any one point, when you take a turn, there's a lot of things happening. When you play a game, especially a board game, I think board game is a little bit tricky, because board game is even more ambiguous than computer games. Computer games has very hard-coded rules. If you cannot do
mm, mm.
something and you try to do it, the game will just not allow you to do it. But board games
Yeah.
are tricky, because board games, you want to facilitate that flow of, like, you want to make a lot of things very clear. I just
Mhm,
want to divide this into these three things: player intention, player action, and player goals. A game of Dominion, how can you make sure the intention, the action, and the goals flow into each other quite seamlessly? So, like for example, right, if a player wants to stockpile currency, if the player wants to defend or attack, attack in the sense like attack their hand, attack their resource or whatever, or if they want
mm,
to go for the win, what do the player need to do? They just discard the card. They just throw the card in the discard pile, and they can do that action.
mhm.
So this two is very clear, because if I look at your game, your player action is very clustered. It's very clogged up. There's a lot of things you need to do. If I want to attack an alien, I need to make sure I have the ammo. I need to make sure I have the correct weapons. I need to make sure I have heat. I need to make sure I have
Mm-hmm.
to roll the dice. I have to make sure so many steps before
Mm-hmm.
I can attack an alien. So I think one thing you want to be a little bit careful is that when the player wants to do something, you want to make sure that when they take an action, that thing happens. Because your game is already structured like that, I'm not really trying to ask you to completely transform the game. I want to see if you can trim some of the things down to facilitate that action, to make it a little bit more fluid. For example, if they want to attack with their weapons, they should be
Mm-hmm.
able to just do it by taking a game action, like discarding a card. I discard a card, I can shoot. Rather than
Yeah.
there's a lot of setup. Because your attack and your setup is sort of jumbled up together, it can be
Mm-hmm.
very hard to pinpoint what the player intention is. It's hard for the players to internalize what they want to do and how they're gonna do it. So
Mm.
I don't know if this again. I don't know if your playtest session is like that. I feel like this discussion phase, this action phase of building your resource to get your mech ready to attack, can be very long and draggy. The intention and the action is very unclear. Like if I were to map out visually, right, just to attack, these are all the considerations they need to take. Like these are all the steps that happens in their mind. Not only that happens in their mind, but these are the things that they also need to do. Maybe this is the kind of experience that you want to structure your game. But if I were to compare to Dominion, player action and player intention is fluid. It's like instantaneous. I know
Yeah.
what, even though they might not know what their intention is, by taking an action, they can kind of see like, oh, so this is what is going to happen if I take this action. They can kind of see, they can kind of build a mental model in terms of what the player wants to do, either later in that turn or next or whatsoever. So
Mm-hmm.
what I recommend is that rather than bog your players' actions down into so many steps, you need to make it clear like what do you want your player to do, and whatever action that they take, it should be very quick and simple.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think like you've got a point there. Like, there is currently quite a lot of, especially like resource
Mm.
requirements,
Mm.
to activate like say a weapon,
Yep. Yes.
and resolving the weapon's action as well is like
Mm.
there's quite a lot to like resolve there as well with like the
Yes.
dice and then the range and then like the alien toughness and all that.
You also have a lot of interdependencies. Like you need
Mm-hmm.
crystals to get ammo, to use weapons, weapons to equip to, you need to buy the weapons also. You need to roll the dice. So there's a lot of also interdependencies, and sometimes that also
Mm-hmm.
can clog the player's mind in terms of like what they need to do. You don't really
Mm-hmm.
have that in Dominion. The interdependency is that, can I buy this? And then once I buy this in my hand already, that's it. I don't need to think about it anymore. You see all these actions, this red color text, discard, add
Mm-hmm.
card, roll dice, mark resource, do math. These are all the steps I need to do to attack. If a player wants to attack, you should just let them attack.
I kind of understand like what you're getting at, but like
Mm.
also at the same time, right? Because the intention behind like the interdependencies
Yes.
was for me sort of to add almost like more depth in a
Mm.
sense to like the way you build out like your
Mm.
roster of weapons and all of that.
Mm.
So like say for example like the energy requirements, right? Or
Mm.
like
Mm.
the ammo requirements. That's
Mm.
like sort of an archetype, a way to sort of reinforce archetypes or like to enforce deck building to
Mm. Mm.
build into that resource so that your deck needs to be built according to your current build. So I'm trying to like, so at the same time I understand like that's like quite
Mm.
bloated in
Mm.
terms
Mm.
of like information overload,
Mhm.
uh overhead.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Like, do you have any suggestions for like how, or like do you see any like specific
Okay.
things like we can adjust here
I I
to like
ca-
reduce that overhead?
I understand that you want to add these interdependencies as a layer of depth, but I
Mm-hmm.
think what is happening right now is that your depth is being, how to say, stretched into over complexity. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
you're adding more depth, you're adding additional complexity. Complexity can lead to creating more depth, but it's not always the case. So you want to make sure that you want to separate complexity and depth into two different things, and really make sure that you're very clear, like, I want to increase depth in my game, but maybe all these things is not truly the answer. I do have a suggestion which maybe hopefully can reframe this whole thing a little bit. I feel this is the main thing about your game. This, if I have to reflect on your session just now and also reading your notes, is that your
Mm.
game has not very clear design spaces. This is the design space for a typical game of Domain. You have your turns, You have
Yep.
your resource and you have the game state basically. Dominion makes it very clear that your action phase and your buy phase is completely separate. When you take an action, you play the action cards. And when
Mm-hmm.
you buy action cards. And when you buy, your action cards goes into your discard pile. You cannot use
Yeah.
those action cards at those point in time. By separating your turns into very clear phases, you are creating a mental model in terms of the players, in terms of what their intention is, and make it very clear in that space. This is the time to do that particular thing. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, in the action phase, this is the time to increase your hand size, expand your phases, sabotage other players, or whatnot. And the buy phase is you set up your next turn. I buy this so that my next turn is stronger. I buy this so that my deck is better. I buy this so I
Mm-hmm.
can make sure that my defense is better. By clearly separating your phases, you can then delegate your play intentions into specific points of the game. When a player wants to advance the game state, it's all in the action phase. Because your
Mm-hmm.
game has so many mechanics, I think you want to see if there's a way to create proper design spaces, maybe for building resource or setting up your mech or for attacking. I think that will help you break down the game's complexity a little bit more. Then you can identify where can you add more depth to your game itself. When I look at the card, it already tells me something because of how the turn structure is being set up. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if I look at this poacher card, it said +1 card, +1 action, +1 gold. This card, I know it's very good early game. Do I need to tell the player that it's good early game? I don't need to tell, right? It is a lot of very quote unquote free actions. One card, one action, one goal. Wow, there's a lot of things you can do. But then there's a downside to it, right? Discard a card per empty supply pile. So this means that as the game gets longer and more piles are being depleted, this card it will get worse. Because when I play this card,
Mm.
I have to discard more. This is where you add depth. The reason why this card tells me this information is because the phases are very clear, and as we play the game, this mental model of how deep this card is becomes a bit more apparent to me because of how the phases are separated. I can see where everything goes. My reference is Magic the Gathering, so when you draft, right, sometimes there's a card that will, they call it the signpost card. That means
Mm-hmm.
this card will tell you that, hey, if you do more of this one thing, you get more things in the future. And because that game has very clear turn structures, the signpost makes it very clear, like, oh, this card gets better if I have a very big creature. Oh, maybe I should build a deck with big creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this card rewards me for discarding cards. Is there a way to discard cards in my deck? When you get a creature in Magic, you can only play creatures in a particular phase, the main phase. So then you know,
Yeah.
like, okay, I make sure that in my main phase I get to play big creatures. So the player has already, by looking at this signpost, they already can create a mental model on how to play this card in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to tell the player to do that. Because your turn structure is already very clear, they will build their mental model themselves. Because I think what is happening right now is you're trying to create those opportunities artificially. If you separate the phases and you create limitations for those, the player will then form that model themselves. This might not solve your problem immediately, but maybe it would help to identify your structural issues a little bit better by separating your game into clearer phases. There's a lot of things in your game that is very, how to say, meshed together. There's a lot of mechanics here. The max speed determines how many cards you draw, but they are asymmetrical. That means like all mechs are different. But in Dominion, right, everyone draws the same amount of cards. What this tells me is that mech has its own little bubble that you need to kind of figure out internally within itself. But you share a universal resource. That mech design space now spills over to your shop structure, your other player structure, your alien mechanic or whatnot. Like there's a lot of things in there that should be self-contained, but is now spilling over to other things. It reminds me a little bit of Slay the Spire. Have you played the recent one, Slay the Spire 2? The
Yes.
multiplayer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've played Slay the Spire too.
yeah. Have you tried the multiplayer function?
Yeah, yeah.
So every character has their own deck, right? But they
Mm-hmm.
do not interact with one another. You want to balance your mech on its own, or do you want your mech to share like a pool, like Dominion? You know, Dominion is like everyone shares the same resource. Everyone builds
Mm-hmm.
a deck. Everyone has a different style of deck, but
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone has the same resource. They draw the same cards, they take the same actions, everything's the same. That sort of spillover of design space can get a little bit messy already. It can create balance issues down the line. Free to perform any actions in any order. Yeah, this one also is like can get very messy because there's so many things that you have to do here. And you also compare with other players. Like for example, if a player attacks and another player buys, that design space has also become very muddy already. It becomes very hard
Mm-hmm.
to determine where are your problems already. I'm not saying there's any particular issue with your rules here, your structure here, but you want to try to be careful of not letting them melt together too much. Compare this card, compare with this card. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's hard to evaluate the quality of a card if the design space feels very scattered. But if I look at this card, because the turn structure is very clear, this
Yeah.
card's power level is very clear to me. Like heat, crystal, like tier one, all this information. Is this card good or not? I'm not very sure. And this can bog down people's cognitive understanding of your game itself. This one, I'll just put it here, but I don't know if this note applies to you or not, lah. But it might relate to what you mentioned about depth and complexity. But I'll just mention it here, lah. The way I look at your game right now, right, it progresses very linearly. Like when you power up the beacon, the game moves in tiers, right? But when I look at
Yeah.
your card list, it's a lot of like it's just bigger numbers. I don't really see a lot of interactions or synergy. For example, signposting, right? In let's say for example a game like Slay the Spire, right? A simple mechanic like vulnerable. Vulnerable means that they take more
50,
damage.
50% more damage.
Correct. So
Yeah.
when you first look at vulnerable, you think, oh, they take more damage, great. And then you look at this class, for example, the Ironclad. They say the Ironclad says if the person is vulnerable, they take even more damage. I was like, oh, maybe I want to build a vulnerable deck. In the Necrobinder, there's a card that says if you do a status effect, is vulnerable a status? Yes, it is. Vulnerable now synergizes with status. So now status becomes like a signpost. Now I know that if the Necrobinder wants to create more status, now the Ironclad knows that, oh, maybe I should prioritize vulnerable because now I know that I can synergize with your status reward card. Maybe what I can recommend also is like you want to separate your game's tiers into having this kind of progression. So like for example, maybe like tier one is just raw sets. Big numbers will reward you. But maybe tier two is where the signposts will start to happen. Like for example, if you have this, if you have that, then you start to see like this is where I can start to build my deck. And then maybe
Mm-hmm.
tier three is the one where you scale. That's when you start to push the damage numbers or maybe like the synergies into like a more efficient level. Maybe scaling is
Right.
like, for example, the more you have one particular thing, the better it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to create this sort of like progression that makes it very clear to the players like, oh, now that I have this one part of the game that is solved, now the next part is there's something new to look forward to. Now where are the synergies? Because if we don't solve this synergy, we cannot defeat these tier 2 aliens, that kind of thing. Try to separate your game into clear design spaces. You can then start to see how one thing in one phase affects something else in another phase, and then you can start to fine tune how the interaction works. If that happens, I think that would solve your that problem. That you will then have room to express how deep you want your game to be. And
Mm.
that also helps your complexity problem, because if you want your game to be complex, you don't want to cram everything together into one particular point of the game. You want to just
Yeah.
spread it out a little bit more, just stretch it out a little bit more so that it's very clear to the player that their intention and the action is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
You're sort of like offloading the brain power to other phases so that they can understand the game a little bit more, and then they can sort of create strategies as the more they play the game.
So far, like, I
Yeah,
actually like one thing I did observe like during the playtest is
yeah,
that the asymmetry is something that players like quite a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I
in the sense that like the game, well, the asymmetry in like the mechs and like also like the sort of like different ammo types, particularly because like they sort of cause the players to sort of diverge in terms of like their roles
mm, mm,
in the game,
mm,
and it sort of like creates like this sort of situation where like some players they go like, okay, my deck at this very moment
mhm,
makes it easier for me to continue building into like a DPS role, and then
mhm,
like maybe another player goes like, oh, I have a lot of cards, or like I have a lot of cards, and like my mech as well also facilitates like me hitting the crystals more, and then like I become like the economy player of the
mm, mm,
team
mm,
and all of that. And like maybe like another player is like, oh, I'll focus on like playing like in between, or like playing as a utility player. Like I'll get draw cards, I'll get like
mm.
things like that.
Ah.
to sort of like facilitate the rest of the team.
Yep.
So like that's like sort of something that I was trying to achieve as well with like the way the cards work.
Mm.
But at the same time, I mean like there's also like the issue where there is little too many mechanics
Mm.
even in like the cards themselves.
Yep.
Uh but yeah. So
Okay. So let me ask you this: do you think all
yes,
of this can be achieved without ammo types?
without ammo
Ammo types.
types.
Yeah. This asymmetrical mech. This every mech can do their own special thing. Do you think you
Mm-hmm.
need ammo types for that or not? Because I'm trying to imagine this now, right? I feel
Yeah.
that ammo types don't really play into that experience that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're talking about is strategies and synergies, and
Yeah.
that's more about creating signposts. I'll just take Slay the Spire for example. Every character has its own resource and mechanic. Like the region has this star resource.
Mm-hmm.
The Necrobinder has the Otzi as a resource, but
Yeah.
they don't interact with one another. Like if you think of that as the ammo type, there's no
Mm-hmm.
reason to give one ammo type to another person unless you know again it's not to say that you shouldn't, but in Slay the Spire you can. It's just that it's very inefficient to do it, but there's no real need to do it. You can create every mech as their own engine that it can do its own special thing. But I would say that I don't really think ammo type is neither. I would tie it to more like your core game interaction. Like for example, drawing cards. Drawing cards can be
Mm-hmm.
something that you care about. Stunning people. I know that you have a stun mechanic. Stunning could be a mechanic.
Yeah.
Maybe status in the general can be a mechanic, or maybe like heating can be a mechanic. Like if somebody overheats, maybe something happens. Like
Yeah.
you want to find all these points in the game that to become your signpost,
Mm-hmm.
and this asymmetric mech system can work. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
um I feel that there are some things that don't really matter, and I think that if you trim those things away, you will start to
Mm-hmm.
discover a lot more to play around with that space. Because
Mm.
again, the ammo cost is sort of like part of the way you set up your weapon. If the player wants to build the mech, I think you should just let it build. Like just create the like figure out a way how to get them to draw the cards they need to draw and use the cards that
Mm-hmm.
you want to use. And don't waste the time to set it up. If you identify what the player likes to do, you just want to let them do that like as easy as possible. But finding the synergy, of course, that's the one that you want to adjust lah. Of course, create a long term strategy for them to see what is the what is the end game will look like lah. What is the how far can you take your max power level in a sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. When I see your card, it makes me feel
Yeah.
like what kind of synergies can I build, like because these heavy texts are like I would think that, oh, are these the signposts, but when I read all of them, it just makes me feel like I'm trying to see what kind of synergy that you can make with all of these cards. Like of course in City Aspire you will get that one card that makes you think like, hey, wait a minute, can I do this? That feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when they want to do, they just do, right? Just play the card, right? I have energy, I play it, and they play it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, acquiring it maybe takes some effort, but you don't want doing it to become what do you call a hassle.
On one hand, like I
Mm,
understand like what you're talking about, and
mm,
with like just reducing the friction between like the players being able to play like what they want
yep,
to do, like after they've managed to acquire the card.
yep,
Um, I think like for sure, definitely right now, like in my card list, the
mm,
synergies are sort of lacking. There's not that many cards like that, like create like this build around moment, or yeah, there's not too many build around cards, or like cards that sort of amplify like existing synergies.
mm,
When we talk about like say the ammo types
mm,
per
mm,
se, because like I think like a very big part of my game
mm,
is that like your action as a player most of the time is actually your deck is say 80% ammo, because like a lot of your loadout is actually just like weapons and tools that are already on the board that you
mm,
trigger with ammo and
mm,
with heat.
mm.
So like what you mentioned just now about like building your deck with like action cards and all of that.
Yes, yep.
um, on one hand, I agree with that philosophy, but on the other hand, I feel like in the context of like this game,
Mm,
it feels a little less. I'm not sure.
mm,
I'm not like 100% sure, but it feels like a little less like a significant
mm,
of like an impact to like the game loop. where like 90% of the time, like the players will just be like drawing cards,
Yes.
and the sort of like optimization that they want to do is basically how can I draw more of the ammo type that I need to cast
Mm, mm,
the weapons that I have
mm, 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 mm,
in
mm,
that sense. That's sort of like the optimization loop, and the reason that there's like a different ammo types in my game,
mm.
like the design behind that is sort of like this deck building tension
Yep.
of I'll take magic as an example, right?
Yeah.
You have different mana colors,
Correct. Yep.
and you can build different colored decks,
Yep.
multicolored decks, and
Yes.
the tension is how much of each color do I put so
Mm,
that I can optimally draw into that mana
mm, mm.
and still be able to cast the spells of these different colors
Right.
when I need to.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
that becomes that sort of deck building tension. And then like
Mm,
that
mm,
deck building tension is then compounded upon the deck building tension of different resource on top of that to progress the game,
mm, 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 mm.
which is the crystals,
Yep.
right?
Mm,
So the crystals are sort of like the battery that drives like, oh, this is
mm,
how I get new weapon cards,
mm,
but at the same time, this is how I win and beat the game.
mm, mm, mm.
And so like the sort of like whole deck building experience that like my game
Yep.
I feel like I'm building around is like that, like
Ah. Okay. Okay.
how much ammo of this type should I flood my deck with, how much ammo of that type should I flood my deck with, and how do
Mm,
I optimize acquiring these ammo
mm,
and balancing that with like crystals
mm.
and at the same time not dying.
Right, right, right. Okay, good point you bring up there because this ammo type, right? Like, I would say if that is what you intend to do, I think
Mm-hmm.
you can go for it. I just feel that the way the turn is structured, it might
Mm-mm-mm.
make that experience a little bit too hassle. If you bring up Magic, for example, right, there is the
Yeah.
tension of adding multiple colors into your deck. But
Mm-hmm.
once the land is out, it's solved already. So
Yeah.
that tension is front loaded, but as the game
Mm-hmm.
goes on, it's smoothed out. You also might need to
Yeah. Yeah.
take more. You want to also spend more resource to make sure that your colors or your ammo types or whatever is there already. But once it's there, once all your resources are set up, you can just rub your hands and like, okay, now I can cast my multicolored spells. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
in a game like the way your game is structured is a little bit like Dominion, where it's like your deck drawing is part of the resource management
Mm-hmm.
itself. You
Yes.
might create a scenario where every time you draw a new hand, you just don't get
Mm-hmm.
the ammo you want, or you just get all the ammo types of one type. Then
Yeah.
that frustration persists because in Magic, the frustration, that tension builds up, is front loaded,
Mm-hmm.
but the tension is no longer there after the game takes like 5 or 6 turns. Once all your colors are out, it's like okay, I'm good. I can play all my
Yeah.
cards, and then now they can think about playing all their cards already. So I think you want to think about that because if Magic was a game that I have to shuffle my lands back into my deck and draw it again, it,
Yeah.
it, it can become very frustrating. Without playtesting, it's pretty hard to say, but I would
Uh-huh.
I would caution on like using the Dominion's deck structure to apply your play experience because that two might not gel. Dominion is structured in a way that it's using the same resource. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why it has that deck structure of drawing the 5 cards, playing your hand, discarding the cards, draw 5 again. That structure is built for that kind of deck. But if
Mm-hmm.
you want a multi-resource based deck like Magic, you might
Yeah.
want to think about, is there a way to create, like, maybe not like Magic, but is there a way to modify your turn structure to allow that kind of gameplay without
Mm-hmm.
leaning too much on the Dominion's structure? Because there is a chance that these two might not be compatible. I worry that the experience that you want the players to have does not translate if they take the same game actions like how they're doing it right now. By separating your game into proper phases, like a proper setup phase, a proper attack phase, and then maybe, like, of course Magic also has a very clear phase system, right? Main phase, attack phase,
Yeah.
blocking
Yeah.
phase. Yeah, so everything is very like set in a particular order. So then you can balance it based on the phase of the game that you intend it to be.
Mm-mm.
So then you can
Yeah.
worry about balancing resource management in the resource management phase, and you don't have to worry about the attack. Yeah, the attack one can come later because then you can balance your game in terms of deck building. Make sure your deck building process is clean, it's clear. There's synergies that you want the players to pick up on. Then maybe the damage can come later, the attacking can come later. Then you worry about the attack later on, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah. I mean, I hope that is helpful. I'm not very sure, but yeah, lah. That's my opinion lah, basically.
Yeah. I think like yeah, definitely I agree with like the f- action phase, splitting it up so like there's like a bit less cognitive load than like
Mm,
each separate phase.
yep.
Yeah.
There
I
is a
can see it, yeah.
there's a chance that if the moment you do that, then a lot of things become clearer. I feel that's my
Mm-hmm.
take. And you want to structure your phase into what you want the players to do. Like you want them to build up first, you want them to attack later, you want them to
Mm.
buy stuff later. For example, like you plan your phases to sort of tell you are telling the player, hey, you should do this first, then this, then this, then this, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
start to balance from there. So hopefully that will help lah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Because I got one more note, but any question on this particular point so far?
So far, no, not any I can think of right now, no.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
think the last one is just more on adding on to what I mentioned earlier in terms of your player experience, right? Like if you like
Mm-hmm.
the deck building part, the mech setup part, maybe you should try to hone in on that and see what other thing that you can, to improve that process. I'm taking another game as an example, Zombicide. Have you played this game before?
I have not played this game, no.
Yeah, okay, so basically it's a tabletop game simulating surviving the zombie apocalypse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty old game. I played it once before. It's pretty fun. Like it sort of replicates the zombie survival element pretty well. It's quite a complex game. It's not like Dominion. Dominion is pretty straightforward. Its
Yeah.
complexity, I would say that I don't know if it's either the same or more than what you have. But I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
give you an example, right? In this game, your characters have all these actions they can do, but they can only
Mm.
do three out of all these things. There is a limitation already. Like yours, right? You can do all of these things. Sorry, where is it? Yeah, you can do all of these things, but you can do all of it
Mm-hmm.
at any point at any time. But this game limits you to show that you can do all these things, but only three. And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe later in the game, you get to do one more action. That's where the game scales up. Then you can do more stuff. But overall, this is how they structure it. And then this game also has a map, okay? And the map has unique objectives. They have zombies, spawn points, types, locked doors, things like that. These character mechanics are interacting with the map mechanics itself. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of other things here that you can do. How they build it is like, for example, like if you want to get weapons, you have to search these rooms. So you have to break down doors and search the rooms. And searching the rooms will allow you to draw a weapon card from a weapon deck, which these things here lah. The player experience of this zombie apocalypse, right? There's so many things you can sort of explore. But what they try to focus on is that they want that survival. You start the game with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a starting weapon, but when you acquire new weapons, it's all about spending resource to open these doors. And once you open the doors, you draw a random weapon card from a weapon deck. And now all the pieces are there. They can sort of like see where everything is because the turn structure is built around the survival. Like all of these actions, right? Open doors, create noise, melee, shoot. These are all typical actions that you associate with surviving in the zombie apocalypse. This map
Mm.
also associates with a lot of things that you might find in a zombie scenario in a zombie movie, a zombie TV series, zombie game or whatnot. I think what you want to do is you really want to pinpoint what player actions tie with the experience that you want them to have the most, and then you really want to just focus on that. Maybe you can look at this game and sort of see what you can pick up from it, because it reminds me of like what you're trying to do, but it makes acquiring things really straightforward. Yeah, and it gives you very strong limitations. It also creates a very clear progression phase as well. Like the
Mm.
more zombies you kill, the more experience you get, and more zombies will spawn, and you can take more actions. So the game advances naturally as you play along. There are some similarities of your Helldiver protecting your beacon against the alien kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to see what is the real experience you want. Do you want the aliens fighting you and you defending part, or do you want the mech building part? And I think
Mm.
that focusing on one of these two will help to reinforce what kind of game ultimately this will become, because like you said, people likes the deck building part, and I do enjoy deck building. I do enjoy Dominion. I do enjoy Slay Spire, Magic the Gathering, all this deck building stuff. What do you think excites you about deck building the most?
For me,
uh,
it's like mainly about finding like synergies and like building like that like big combo.
yes, I think you should focus on that if that's what you want to do. So this might not be relevant to you, but this is the how they translate the alien attacking mechanics, like the zombie survival elements,
Mm-hmm.
into a board game structure. Now,
Yeah.
you might not want this might not be applicable to you because maybe this is not the experience you want. Maybe you think like this alien attacking thing is not really super important to me. I do like the deck building part. Maybe then you can look at how other games do it, like like Dominion, Slay the Spire, or whatnot. You look at the card, it's like, wait a minute, if I play this with this, isn't this like super awesome? Is there that kind of feeling? You want to see, is there any way that you can sort of draw from it? Like what I'm feeling right now, there is a mech building part, but there's also this alien attacking part. It's not to say that these two don't work together very well. I'm just saying that which one do you want to focus more on? And now that
Mm.
after talking to you, I realize that you do want to focus more on the mech building. A
Okay.
well-represented game experience means clear game actions that aligns with player intentions, which then gives them meaningful feedback. The more elegant, the better. So like a card like this, right? What is the experience like? I'm dumping useless resource for more useful one because the action is very clear. I just play this card and I get to do it. The intention, right? I want to manipulate my hand so I can find more resources. This is my intention. This is the action. This is the
Mm-hmm.
experience I'm getting out of this by doing this action. What is the feedback? I have a stronger Python, I get better decks, the pile gets smaller, the game gets shorter. So by doing this, right, I immediately see my shitty hand becoming a better hand. I want you to look at your deck building part, maybe see if this is a process that you can sort of like go through. That when you look at a card, it's like you already know what I want to do and whether I can do it or not. The signposting in that sense. If I know my deck has very strong cards, it's just that it's very bloated, then I know I need a card something like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is something that you happens in City Spire also if you play City Spire. Like the silence starts with a very big deck and it's very hard for them to get rid of cards. So what they look for? They look for card draw, they look for card discard cycling, they cycle through the deck to find the cards
Yeah.
that they need. I don't know if this is helpful to you, but this is how I would frame your intended experience. How do you frame your experience into action, into intention, into feedback? If all of this is very clear, then it sticks in the player's head very fast.
Right. Right.
All my notes so far. I hope that this covers what what you're looking for. I mean like your game is pretty how to say, it's pretty advanced into its development stage already, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
that only you know what kind of game you want to make. I'm not trying to tell you what game you should make, but I'm just pointing out stuff that maybe like hopefully that can help you move towards the direction that your game needs to be lah, or your game or what the game you want to be. Do you have any questions based on what you're seeing so far?
Okay. So let me try like summarize a little bit here, right? So
Yeah, sure.
I think like what I feel like I need to do for the game
Yeah.
right now is like sort of clarify that intended player experience, because like right now it is, what's the word? There's a lot of noise between
Mm.
like what the player has to do and what
Yeah.
the player wants or should be doing.
Correct. If I were to frame it in Dominion, right? Dominion has this sort of like territory control kind of vibe, right? But
Yeah.
it's really light. When I read this card, right, I don't really care what this picture or this word is, right? I care about this
Yeah.
thing. In a way, right, Dominion mechanics and experience is heavily tied to the deck building part. So all of
Mm-hmm.
this flavor is not super important.
Yeah.
I don't. So if you go on one direction, it becomes more like Dominion, where your deck building becomes the main element, and
Mm-hmm.
combating the aliens is more like a by the way thing. Or you can go more like Zombicide, which is like you want the full alien invasion defending against a horde kind of experience, but then you
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
need to simplify the deck building part because that becomes maybe not as important. Or
Mm.
you want to combine these two, but that requires a lot of restructuring to make sure that everything works very well together. I'm not saying you should do one or the other. I'm just saying that right now everything feels too meshed up together. I think you want to make it very clear what do you want and
Mm-hmm.
how do you want to express it. Yeah. Don't be afraid to take certain things away and just see how it feels like. Because I feel like sometimes you worry that if I take this away, will it be better? And I feel like this is just based on my personal experience. Sometimes in the game design process, you end up cutting a lot of things down the line because you just really feel like, actually, I don't really need all this fluff if I want the player to do a specific action, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I feel like that's always the hardest part for me, is like it's like I have all these like cool mechanics that do interact with each other, and it's like, which one do I kill?
I
Yeah.
think I struggle with that as well. One comfort that I can rely on is that you kill the ones that stops the player from doing what they want. If the player wants to do something, if you feel that as the player plays your game at different phases, they tend to fall on specific habits or fall on specific behaviors. You want to
Mm-mm.
lean more into those. And then anything that stops them from doing that, you want to cut those. Yeah.
Yeah.
If let's say they want to attack and they just go through all the slog just to attack, then you say maybe I should make attack easier, you know? If they focus so much time on deck building that they don't really care about the aliens attacking, maybe aliens attacking is something that you can sort of tone down a bit, trim down a bit. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because like what you said, like with like the what the player wants to do during like the game, right?
Yes.
I I don't know, but like it's when I'm playtesting this game,
Mm,
and I playtest like with like my friends and like my colleagues, and like
mm,
they're a pretty diverse
mm,
range of gamers, and like I get like groups that go like, hey, I really like being able to collect all of this resource, and
mm,
like seeing all of this resource go up in my hand makes me feel good. And then I have like other players that go like, I really love that you can mow down hordes of aliens all at once.
mm.
And then I guess it comes down to the designer to figure out
Yes, the designer will need
which
to figure out.
direction.
Correct. Yes, that's up to you because then ultimately what kind of game you want to make, but
Hmm.
then that game that you want to make will draw will lean into a particular player group, and there
Hmm.
is a risk of alienating another type of player group, right? And I think
Yeah.
you have to just accept it because uh, if you look at these two games now, people who like to play Zombicide might also like to play Dominion, but
Hmm.
sometimes they just don't. Sometimes people who like to play Zombicide just likes the flavor of the zombie apocalypse. Some
Yeah.
people who like Dominion, they love the deck building part.
Hmm.
Then you gotta figure out like which kind of game that you want to make. And there's no right
Yeah.
or wrong answer. It's just what kind of game you want to make. Is it that the moment when you try to bring another element into it, that's when it becomes messy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, but I think like what I'll do is I think I'll start with like the structuring,
mm, mm,
uh, and then test from there. See if like that helps make things like more apparent, like where too much complexity is in the game,
yep.
and then like from there like cut based on that. That's sort of my current gut feeling
Yeah.
based on like what I've like what I've gotten from you.
Yeah, so what I recommend is that you separate your game into clear phases so that
Mm-hmm.
you know where your design space is.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe it will give you a better answer into what to cut. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that helps because I think if everything is too meshed together, I think you also would start to struggle where is the noise. And then I think also the players when they play it also they might pick up things from other game elements that they don't fully understand, and maybe they might give you an answer which is a little bit influenced by other mechanics that is not really intended to. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully by dividing the phases, maybe it becomes really clear what they like to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, maybe you might also find the answer that, hey, now that my phases are clear, I finally figure out a solution how to combine all of this into a seamless experience. Yeah, that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
That can only happen if you divide your game into clear phases.
Okay, one thing I suddenly remembered about like why I chose to go with like the sort of like a jumbled up
Mm-hmm.
phase system
Yep.
to begin with is like my previous iterations did have like a lot more rigid like phases.
Yep.
But one thing that I did notice like during that was because I was trying to create like a very collaborative, very interactive co-op experience. And
Mm-hmm.
when there were these like very defined phases and like, very defined like I do my thing, you do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not even that. Like it's like more so the structure of the game sort of like dissuaded interaction almost. But I'm not.
Uh,
That might also be a symptom of like just not enough interaction being in like the mechanics of the cards and all of that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the main reason why I was like, oh, maybe I could try like merging everything is because I was like, oh, the players could communicate with their intentions with each other and figure
Mm-hmm.
out together their intentions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like now it might be causing yeah, it's causing quite a lot of like this like bloat in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like decision making space for the player.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah.
Have you played a game of Commander in Magic?
Yes, I
Yes.
have.
Commander is multiplayer, free for all kind of game, but there's
Mm-hmm,
also
mm-hmm.
moments of collaboration, right? It's like, hey, this guy is doing something. Can we stop
Yeah.
them or not? That
Mm-hmm.
discussion does happen, right? And you
Yeah.
know where does it happen? It happens on the player's turn, but because
Mm-hmm.
instance exists, you create that space for discussion.
Right, right.
Because
Yeah.
there's the card type instance says, you know, I can cast this at any point, like I put it on the stack at any time, in response to another play's action.
Mm-hmm.
Because that rule exists, that clear phase exists,
Mm.
it facilitates discussion, and it facilitates a very specific discussion for a very specific point. So
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully, if you keep the phases clear, but
Mm-hmm.
you keep an eye on interactions like this, maybe that discussion will come back into it. I feel also is that because there's no signpost, like for example in Slay the Spire, the player's turn is also jumbled up. You do everything at once.
Yeah.
But the signpost card tells player, wait, guys. I have this card that says every other player does triple damage if I use this. Let me use this first. Because
Mm-hmm.
of not because of the separation of the phase, not because of
Yeah.
the jumble up of the phase, but because the card says if I play this card, every other player after this does more
Mm-hmm.
damage. So you want to think about the card interaction creates that discussion. Because right now, also one thing that I'm noticing, again, I do not know it's true because I didn't read all the cards, is that all your
Mm-hmm.
interaction is very linear. Either no or maybe very little cards that I see that when I look at it, it's like, oh, I see what you're trying to do here. I see what kind of strategy you're trying to make players play. Anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for applying to this one. I hope this helps. And maybe another question I want to ask is that, how
Uh-huh.
far do you want to take this game? Like, do you feel like this is like 80% done, or you feel like, like where do you see this game right now currently?
My God.
Or
uh,
it's done when it's done kind of thing.
I feel like for me, like this game is like more of like a for fun project. So it's
Yeah,
it's very much like a, I don't know, the mentality I've taken with it is like it's done when it's done kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
No worries. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
fine also. I think that's fine also.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Co-
If you don't put that commercial pressure on it, I do feel like you can find a lot more creative freedom to express your game. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, because like yeah, it's been like a sort of like a thing to do on the side that's not like video games.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do
Mhm.
enjoy board game once in a while. If my friends are free to play.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending like the time to like research and like read up about my game and all.
Yeah,
And
no worries, no worries.
the feedback was very, very valuable.
Thank you, thank you. I also enjoy looking at what other people are doing. I think that also inspires me to a certain extent. Mm. All right, okay, thanks, and we're done.